All right, so now we're going to jump into making a high-res version of this box. To do that, we have to do a couple little things first, some things I noticed that were wrong. I'm going to take this one real quick and mess with this. So if I look at this reference plane, I called it reference, and I come up here and I go to the material editor, and I do an eyedropper on it. We're going to see that I have the material here, and if I double click on it, you'll see I already named it reference, but you can name a reference if it isn't. And then I'm going to turn up the self-illumination to 100%. What that allows me to do is no matter which direction I look at it, I can see it. I don't have the black. If I had it before, it was like that. And if I have it now, it's like that. So the 100% and 0%. Then I'm going to come into Edit Properties. I'm going to make sure that Frozen and Gray, which is probably checked off for you, is turned off. And I'm going to freeze it. That way I can't click it by accident. All right, then we're going to come to here. And I noticed that this extrusion is a little bit longer. So I'm going to pull this up just to exaggerate it, give us a little bit more breathing room. Something like that, and maybe even pull it in just a bit. Let me see. And we'll leave it the way it is. Okay, so the first thing I need to do is look at this and figure out what is the easiest way to get some of these shapes. Should I do it in symmetry or should I do it in straight up? In this case, this top piece will be easier to do in symmetry or without symmetry, because if I do it in symmetry, when I scale, it's going to scale each piece separately, and then we'll get this weird thing in the middle. So if I do it with symmetry off, with just the full object, I can come in here and go to bevel, and inside of bevel, I can say 0, and whatever these are set to, set the extrusion mount to 0, which is the top number, and then I'm going to set this one to like negative point. Thank you, Max. Yeah, negative 0.3. I think. Probably needs more than that. Let's do 5. That looks pretty good, but I'm going to add one more. 6. Okay. So, whoa. Thank you, Max. Negative 0.06. Okay. So I've got that. Then I don't want to push the checkbox if you haven't used these before. You want to push plus. So it adds another section. Sometimes it double clicks, so be careful about that. I'm going to add 001 to this one. So it's the smallest amount of inset. And then I'm going to go negative, I think I went to 3. Negative 0.03. Okay, so I just get, that's too much, actually. I think it was 2. Still too much. Gosh, it was 005. How about 1? There you go, that's good enough. I want to beef it up a little bit, actually, which is funny because I just went through all those different versions. But I'm going to go half again, because when I start beveling stuff, I need those edge space to work with. Okay. So again, we've got our box, we've got our thing set up, we've got our extrusion down on the ground. Now we need to look at the other stuff. This is a lid, and it's got 2 latches, so what's the best way to attack that? I may come back to the lid on this, but what I'm probably going to start looking at now is doing symmetry. Now, I don't want a symmetry top-bottom, so I don't want a symmetry in Z because these are different. But I do want a symmetry back, front, and side. So I'm going to take all of these objects here and all these edges, these faces here, just to make... I just said I wasn't going to do that, sorry. This one. Try this again. I'm going to go back is gone, and that's probably, and left right is gone. Just not up down. So I have a stack. So I do have that. Then we can put the symmetry on, and we'll say flip X, and then symmetry one more time, but this time just Y and flip Y. So we don't need the Z because the Z is still there. Okay, so next thing we'll look at is doing the small things. Sure, we'll do the small things. Okay, so we're going to look at this edge here. If I do this edge, I want it to go all the way around, so I want to wait till that's all one object again. This probably for one object is a good thing, but this one down here is probably okay. So let's talk about how we cut things up inside of here. Well, all we do is we're going to use our modeling tool, come back to here, show final results to pick a modeling area, and we're going to start cutting. We can either use the connect tool where we grab everything like this and connect, or we can use the swift loop. So if we use the Swift loop, it picks all the way down and it goes. Now, just so you know, these two plates, if you make sure you remember, were separate. Okay, so I'm going to do that there. And again, we don't care about the extra polys unless they get in the way of us building. All we care about is that everything's lined up. So I'm going to say X to snap that so it's like that. And it looks like it's got an extra one here, which is actually a good thing for us. So we're going to go ahead and pull that one there too. And then we'll do Y on that. Oops. We'll do Z on that, excuse me. And then maybe move it up just so it's just above the plate there. Okay. So now we're going to look at this. This is probably going to be a separate piece because it looks like it's extruding in some. So we're probably going to just do it that way for the ZBrush purposes. I mean, for the normals and stuff. So the idea of what we're doing at this point is making high-res objects that we can bake, and I'm going to go over that in the next little bit. I'm going to probably pause the video in a minute and go over the normals and how they all work and everything. But for now, let's just go forward. We're going to use the biggest way to check and see if your symmetry or if your high-res is going to work is we're going to use this thing called Turbo Smooth. If we use Turbo Smooth now, you see how we lose all this definition? Let me turn this off. Okay. See how we lose all the definition? Well, the way we fix that problem is actually just by modeling. And interestingly, actually, I'm going to put the Turbo Smooth at the top here. Okay. By showing the final results, and then what we'll do is we'll use that Swift loop. And watch what happens as I Swift loop around. Basically, we're making what are called support loops. Okay, so we're going to grab this edge right there and pop. Suddenly, that works better, meaning that this piece is going there. Now, this being a try, or it being a try a minute ago, means that it wasn't going to work perfectly. We'll do that by hand in a second, but we'll do this one. And now you can start to see we have this perfectly flat edge. And then I'm going to come over here and do this one by hand. So connect and then slide it up so it's even with the one that we did before. Check, and then we're going to take these two verts, and then connect them, which is right here. Okay, and now you can start to see, if we look over on the pieces that aren't set up that way, they're starting to get hard edges all the way across. So now we can go back and we can keep it in any way. The great thing about Swift Loop is we can keep it in any modeling setup. So I'm going to come up here now and do that. And you'll see that edge got more strengthened right there. And then I'm going to come to this piece and watch what happens here. Pop. It worked great. Except we're getting that weird stuff. I'll show you how to get rid of that in a second. I'm going to go down here to this one. Pop. Now look at that. We have a really strong edge border. But we still have this weird corner. What's going on is that division is bending it across the edge, and I'll take this second to explain to you how Turbo Smooth works. Okay, now that we know how Turbo Smooth works, if we look at this, what I want to do is actually want to cut this edge here, and I want to cut this bottom one. Right now, I've just cut it. If we turn off the final and go to here, you'll see I just cut it on this one side right here. I haven't cut it on down here. So if I come back up, turn the back on and turn this off. What I want to do is cut it here, and lucky for us, it also, when we do it right there, it cuts across this edge here, which will start to support that piece. So now, if we look over here, look how much stronger that piece is. We still don't have it complete, but look, now we have a corner. What? Okay, so we're going to come over here and do the same thing on this one. Okay, now we've got a secondary corner, and this one's being a little bit different. Oh, because of this cut. Okay, so decide if I like that. Really, I'm putting a lot more effort into this thought process right here, because what it's also doing is locking this corner over here for me too. So, you know, if I go like this, which you'll see cuts across all these pieces. Now I get a really strong corner. And then I have one here, I need one here. And then we're going to start to get weird stuff, but we get back to that corner being divided here. So now we're getting that sharp corner there, that sharp corner there. We do want something here. That one's a little bit cleaner. And then we probably want something underneath it. So basically you want a support at every edge you already have, above and below. So you're tripling your poly count plus quadrupling it, as we've talked about before. But again, this is only for that's nice. This is only for high res, and high res doesn't matter about polygons. It doesn't matter about all the details, because the high res, we're just really using it to make our bake maps off of, which makes our objects look a lot more detailed with less polys. We cheat. We've been doing it forever, and like I said before, Pixar thought of this, so thank you, Pixar. Bonk. So now I'm just really cutting in these supports. See how strong it is now? The reason we do this is we don't want to have, and there's still one missing right here. Oof. And one right there, actually. That one there. And now that one's going to go up, yeah. I'm going to go ahead and do a hand cut from here. Actually, do a connect from that to that. And that way when I make the next one, I can support it without going crazy. The only thing you need to do when you're making stuff with support cuts and things like that is you want to just make sure that it doesn't go crazy so you lose track of everything. But now look at that, perfect edges everywhere I go. Perfect. There's some soft stuff here, and that's all we do. We're looking for soft. So where is it soft? It's soft right here. So if I go back and go to my Swift loops, let me look at what I'm cutting. All I'm doing is cutting across that edge right there. Now if I look at it over here now, I've got beauty. Beauty. Okay. So let's see what this one does. Beautiful. So it's pretty easy to do this part. There's some thinking parts we're gonna have to do in a few minutes, but and then we're looking at this right here as a separate piece. We could have popped this out as a separate piece too, but I think I want to try and do it as a positive so it's a lot faster. The idea is that these don't take too long. They just take some thinking. And if they had to unwrap these, it sucks. They don't have to anymore, so I don't know if we really ever did, but need to. But some of us did in the beginning of our careers when everybody thought you were supposed to. Okay. Let me see. Looks pretty strong. Oh, yeah, this one's going to be weird, huh? So this one I'm going to do by hand too, meaning that I'm going to use connect. Right click, connect, just so I could have it go back up that edge, but it's just such a waste of geometry. So I'm going to do that, go to one, take this one, and just have it touch up there. I think I like that. Not sure if I do actually. No, that's how we did on the bottom. So we'll take this one, go to there, which I know will only go there, won't go forward, and do the same thing, connect, and then do a negative 91. Instead of a negative, we're going to go positive 91, and maybe a little bit more to match. Then we'll do this to this, and do copy. Let's see what we get. And the cool thing is if you have your symmetry on, you can see what you're getting as you do it. Okay, so this piece should go to this piece. Oops. Maybe. Let me go. Probably could use another one right here. This is where it gets weirdo because, oh, you know what? Duh. Nope, wrong button. If I remove this, oops, if I remove it in the backspace, and I take this guy, just like that, even better. If I remove it, I guess it wasn't better. Go to here. Go to here. Basically, I'm just going to cut up to that piece right there. See? Beautiful. Nice. Everything seems hard-edged. Good. Now, these don't because they're separate objects, and we'll deal with that in a second. This one's missing an edge. You can tell because it looks softer. See? So, come back in here, do a swift loop. The closer it is to the edge, the sharper the corner will be. So if you want a harder corner, then you just do it further from the edge, and see, there we go. It's all beautiful. We've got some things going on here, which may or may not like, but it works out for our benefit. Okay, so that's the basic frame of the box all blocked in. Okay. Now we need to start looking at some of these other details, or let's do this box, these edges here. So these are separate pieces, see? So if I click on here, it looks like it's going through, but it's really just going through the main body. So in this case, I want to go down to here and just do that. Then go down to here and just do that. And that should... And then if I just do a couple of... Well, you know what? We have to cut that anyway. So I'll cut it... Not that one, this one. Cut it here. And there. And it looks like... Huh. Okay. And then we'll cut it for this piece a little bit higher, like there. And maybe there. Not really feeling this soft edge right there, so I'm going to put another cut there just to give it another support. Okay, so we've got all of this box. If we look at it over here, for example, we can see that it's all hard-edged. Everything seems... Oh, sorry. Now we got this bottom one. And this is a good place to start thinking about saving your work, because the quicker you save it, the less you get yelling at it later. One of the things I think we did on the last one is had this to... Let me see. Left. It's a little low. I'm just going to lift it up because there's just no reason for it to be this low. Okay. Also, left. It's a little thick. It doesn't need to be that far back. Okay. Back up here, look at that, and then we're going to go Control-Shift-D. For me, for my shortcut. For a while, that was the shortcut for Swift Loops, but for whatever reason, they, in their brilliance and wisdom, decided to change it to... I don't know what it is anymore. Okay, so we have a nice, perfectly hard edge thing. Oh, looks like we missed something in here, interestingly. That one. There. I'm just giving extra cuts because extra cuts, generally speaking, are a safe thing to do. That's the reason we're doing the high. Okay, so now we've got everything. If I turn off this, we've got everything pretty hard-edged and pretty perfect. You know, this is the problem with this, is I could do this for days. I'm going to put this one right there. Not that. There. It's a little bit better of an edge. A little bit more of a support. The bigger gaps you have, the worse it is for those support edges to do their thing. Unless anyone there. Okay. So now we got to start carving in the detail into this piece. So like these things right down here, we talked about them being separate. We could cut this out And if you want to see what the actual mesh looks like, then you can turn on this, and that's what the mesh is looking like now. Now, 20,000 polys is really not that much, but it's worth noting that it's going to go up. So, okay, so I'm going to look at this edge here. Now I'm going to stop cutting. Go to edit edge mode and look at this piece. And decide, you know, I'm not super crazy about all this, but it's fine. Again, we're using this for the high res. As long as the final model works out, we're okay. And then I'm going to show you other ways to do it later. Okay, so here's a little trick. Something I don't know where I picked it up, but somebody showed this to me and I was like, what? So I'm going to show it to you so you can say, what? So I'm going to say extrude on an edge, which doesn't seem like it's a big deal, but if you say 0 for this first, and then you say negative extrusion, and then you say how far you want that edge to be out, like this. And now have this perfect cut all around the box, and it's really easy for me to separate this out. The only thing about this edge, because it's got such sharp angles as they go down, we can fix that in 2 seconds. But let's see if we can get it to 7. I'll take a look at it over here. The only thing I'm worried about is that overlapping stuff. So 6 is okay. Let's try 0.5. Okay, so we're going to have to clean up some of this, but that's fine. And then we say okay. And then what we're going to do real quick is come in here, and I'm going to turn off that, turn this on, which is the wireframe on object. And I'm going to come in here real quick and clean up some of my mess by moving this over and moving this over, and then probably moving this back. This over, and then oops, stop it. I'm going to grab all of these, make sure they're on the same plane like that. And I'm not real crazy about that, but that's what happens sometimes. Okay, over. Same plane. There we go. More or less. Okay. So now we've got our final cut it out piece right there. Now we can take that, and if we look at the original picture, you can see there's a couple of places where it cuts out, and there's a couple places it cuts out here. It's actually, I think, would be easier if we separated the lid. Might have been easier to do it earlier, but I kind of want to show you some of the hard stuff just so you get used to thinking this way too. So I'm going to double click. I'm going to go back to this. Make sure I grab that whole... Oh, hello. So, what are you not going here for? That was weird. Makes me think there's polys somewhere. Okay, it doesn't matter. Make sure it goes all the way around. You may have to help it here. Okay, it goes there. And then we're going to do a trick that I call another magic trick, right? So we're going to chamfer. Why would we chamfer? Well, we're going to pull back on the chamfer so it's really, really small. In fact, we're going to say 0, but we're going to say open chamfer. Like that. So it's opened edged. And in theory, we should be able to grab this as a separate object now. See that? It's now its own object. And watch what happens when we smooth it. Since it's its own object, it has its own smoothing groups. So what I'm going to do is take this object off. We're going to say detach. We're going to call this lid. So we can work just on part of it at a time right now. Okay, so do we want to work the lid or do we want to work the other thing? They both go through the lid, I get that. And once we pick one, that's where the other one's going to be too. So like if we cut where we're going to put this latch, we just have to make sure we match. We could have guessed, I guess we could have cut it at the same time. It's hindsight. So I'm going to go and hide the lid first. Hide. I'm going to grab this and go back down here to edit. And go to edge mode. And that right there is what we're looking at making first. I'm not worried about the plug inside of it as much as the cut. So I'm going to I'm going to Swift Loop, which click up here. And I'm going to go to, call it like right there. And right there. And I'll straighten them. Like that. And then we're going to figure out how we're going to do this cut. So the easiest way to do this cut maybe the old-fashioned way. So I'm going to take this. I'm going to take these two edges right here. Turn this off. Take these two edges. Make sure I can see my wireframe. Those two edges after I just cut the top pieces, I'm going to delete them. Now, these don't go all the way down, so I do need to make one more cut here. Like through here. So it goes almost to the base. I'm going to call it to right there. Okay, so I've cut it around. Basically, I'm cutting this edge right here. I've cut this, which is basically just leaving this to the gap. And then what do? Well, it's pretty straightforward. I'm just going to extrude it negatively, or even bevel it maybe. Just like I did extrude. I meant bevel. Just like I did before. And what that does is it gives me that gap piece that I may or may not want. But it sets it up for what I want, and that's probably too deep. I'm gonna go 0.8 like that, and then say checkbox, and then say delete. Okay, so a couple things you'll notice. These gap, I did do too much, so it's really easy to fix that. We're gonna go to 2, grab this edge right here, grab this edge right here, turn on my snap tool like we did the other day, make sure it's on vertex, shift, spacebar, shift, and snap it to that piece right there. Pretty straightforward, right? And then the question is, which way do we want to do this welding here? I'm going to target weld this to this, and target weld this to this. And then, if I want, what I probably should do is I probably want to pull this face out a little bit more to match the same depth, like that much. Yeah. And then I'm gonna just take this edge here and say bridge. Hello, bridge. Where'd you go, bridge? Bridge, 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 bridge. And I'm gonna click there, and I'm done. Now, that's my first thing. Now watch what happens when I do this, of course. So, I mean, there's always an argument to be made that I should have cut this all up before, and that's totally fine, and you wouldn't be wrong. You would just, you know, have a different way of doing it, and that's fine. So before I do the next cut, which would probably go, yeah, it's just going to go around the box. So all I have to do, actually, let's do a cut here. Do a cut here. Again, we don't care as much, and that's weird. Let me see what's going on here. about the poly count. Is that a try? Did I just do a try? I did. Oh, it's not a try. Then okay. Ah, that's the one. I missed the vert. Collapse. So if you can't, when you're using the Swift loop and it doesn't go all the way across, that's just a vert that didn't get collapsed. So like this one, I didn't collapse this one either. So if I come over here to vert one, and I look at this, you can see how I selected and it's still blue. That means there's 2 verts there. So if I select 2 of them, it'll say 2 vertices, and then I just want to collapse them. Okay. And I'm going to go ahead and pull this one over too. Okay. So now I go back to my Swift loop and I do this to there. And look, it goes all the way across the whole thing. We check and see. Yeah, that's kind of what I didn't want it to do, so I'm going to hold off on that one. What about this one? It's pretty good. Yeah. How about this one? Well, okay, so that's the other one I do want. But I'm going to do this one first. And before I cut this one, I'm going to cut out the part that is right here. Okay. So if we see final, I'm going to turn off this. We can see we've got our cut pretty good. Sometimes you want to cut it again just to lock it down, maybe. Well, part of that may be, it's this cut. Once we get that cut in, you see how it's perfect. But let's get over here and do this side first. So again, we're just guesstimating at this point, but I'm saying that's about a little over a quarter a piece. So 2 of these make a half. I think it's a little bit more than that, but and we're gonna, even though these look different slanted, like this one looks like it's more down, I'm gonna try and just keep them the same. So that gives us a good example of where we're gonna go. So first thing we need to do is cut it about, yeah, we'll just do it there. Okay. And then we need to cut it across here. That. Okay. So what I'm going to do is grab all of these and move them diagonal. I'm trying to make the shape that's this diagonal right there, like that. Okay. In hindsight, it would have been faster, cheaper to do it the other way. So, hindsight. I'm glad I'm showing you the wrong ways. Okay. So, what we're going to do is take this edge and this edge. Yeah. And this edge. And shift and drag it to right there. So it snaps to that. And we can decide how far we want it back in a minute. I'm just going to collapse these 2. I know it looks funny because we're because it's smoothing out every time I do it. So that's kind of what we want right there. And then we're just going to do, in this case, I'm going to take 2, this one and this one, and shift drag them up just to that point right now. And I drag this guy all the way up. So I go back to left, look at it. And go to 1, snap them. And now we should have a closed edge. And then we can decide if we want this back further. Once we get it all in here, we'll see. Who can tell? Okay. So we'll take a look at this. And now, if I cut, maybe I won't be so messed up here. Let me deselect that. And this is the last thing we're going to do for today. So let's do this. We're going to go back to our Swift loop. And let's see what happens. Beautiful. So I may actually want to pull that in tighter real quick here. Like that. Okay. And see, it got rid of that other problem that we had, and this one may not have. Okay. So that one had a double 2. Not sure if I feel about that one. Okay, so we need to take it to here. And then we need to take this one here. We need to take this one here. And then we need we'll get it over here. And we get that. And this one, I'm going to go all the way to there. Okay. This should be fine, but it's being poo face, so, and that's a technical term. You guys should just not use that until you become masters. So we're gonna pull it down to here, and we'll turn it back on. Part of the problem might be this overlapping stuff. So what I could do here is this maybe. There we go. Okay. So we've got these two pieces in here. Now we can decide, like I said, we can take this edge that we have up here. Stop. Take this edge that we have here and here and all the way around there. Of course we have to grab it here, but I don't want that one, but I'll come back and get rid of that one in a minute. Oops. Like that. I'll take this out. Take that out. Don't want that selected. Make sure I have it over here like that. I'm trying to sneak in. Any of you guys over here, yep. Okay, so the last thing we're going to do is grab these. I know I grabbed the edges first, but I'm going to grab these this time and just see how far back we want them. And this one, it's hard to tell how much slanted that is, but that's fine. And then we'll take, oops, redo that, take this one back. That. Okay. Okay. Oh, a couple more little things, and then we'll get to. We'll probably. Yeah, we'll do the lid and these side things on Thursday. And this, actually. And the extra pieces. We did cut these already, so let's do this. Let's take these. Let's go to 2. And it's pretty much... Right, this is these guys. So double click this. Goes too far, that's fine. We'll double click this. No, not double click, just click this. And then we're going to do that special trick I had before, where it's extrude. And it should be the same settings we had before, which is great. And then we're going to get rid of this little triangle right here. I think, let's see what happens when we smooth it. So when we smooth it, we get weirdness, right? So, again, I'll cut that one. Cut that one. Move that back up there. I'm trying to give it a good cut there. So basically we're just trying to clean up that cut. Looks pretty good. Okay, what else? Yeah, that's it for now. All right, get your boxes to this point by the end of, oh, come on, don't be a jerk. By Thursday, and we'll be good to go. Unhide. And we'll start on the pieces that we don't see. Here. I take this lid, I was going to say, and do symmetry, flip, symmetry, flip. And we can start to see we get our thing set up here. Some things I would fix, I'm going to tweak, and we'll do some more crazy stuff. We might pull this out a little bit more if we have room. Yeah. Okay. Anyway, that's what you got.